Okay. Hey everyone. So we're looking at an IXL, and if you're looking at this years from now, don't worry about the number on the IXL because that might change, but just the IXLs that have to do with exponential functions where you're trying to figure out what function hits what graph based on the numbers and where those numbers are. So a few things to think about for a basic exponential function, when it's not a bunch of numbers everywhere, it's just your base number, your exponent, and then a number being multiplied by the base number with that exponent. This number being multiplied by it is the y-intercept. The base number, depending on what it is, shows growth or decay. So for example, if this number right here, the A, if it is a number greater than 1, that means your graph is going to grow. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. If this number is less than 1, then that means your graph is going to decrease, decay, get smaller. So for example, on this IXL, this one on the right, I would consider a growth because looking from left to right, looking at the y values are getting bigger, they're increasing. So that is considered a growth graph. The one on the left side, this is considered decay because, or getting smaller, the y value specifically. So we start out, for example, y values up high, and then as we go farther to the right, the y values are pretty low. So this is considered decay. So keep that in mind. So that means automatically, when I'm thinking about which of these functions matches which graph, for this first one, because it's decay, it has to be one of these. It has to be one of them because it's showing a number for this base. It's less than 1. If I divide 1 by 3, I get 0.33333. If I divide 1 by 4, I get 0.25. So it's a number less than 1. So automatically it's one of those. For growth, these over here are automatically showing growth. So that has to, one of those at least, has to match this growth graph here. It has to, because the base number here is greater than 1. Which one goes where? One idea is to figure out some points. So for example, I see this point pretty clearly. 1, 4. So out of the growth possibilities, you have to ask yourself, which one of these equations makes sense for the x value to be 1 and the y value to be 4? Well, only this one. Because 4 raised to the value of 1, so the exponent of 1, 4 raised to the first power is 4. So when x equals 1, y, or in this case, s of x equals 4. So it has to be this one. There is no other option. So I would put this one here. Now for this one, this is a decay, so it has to be one of these. So I'm going to find a point. So here's a point right here. -1, 4. So then I have to ask myself, out of these two options here, which one, if I plug in -1 as the x value, so -1 is the exponent, which one will equal a y value of 4? And automatically this one, even if you didn't use a calculator, just look at the patterns, look at the numbers that are in the equation, right? The 4s match up. So this one automatically goes here. Now there's only 2 options left, the 3 to the power of x and the 1/3 to the power of x. So there's 2 graphs on the bottom. Those are automatically going to go with those. I'm good to go. I don't need to do any more thinking. So that's an idea of how to do this. Now, Ezekiel, you were looking at it a little differently. How were you figuring it out? Because you're doing well.
I just did it because I would see the fractions part, and then sometimes you'll have the same one, and then I'll look to see which one was closer to the number.
So the y value?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so looking at the y values. Okay. So for ones like this, we're getting into the realm of negative. So first of all, going back to this basic function, the number, the number that's being multiplied by the base and the exponent, that is the y-intercept. What'd I get wrong? Let's see. Let me erase all this first. So anytime you get something wrong, don't just skip to the next question, y'all. Look to see what is the issue. Always look here first. So now, then read their explanation. It would be something like this. No, I don't like that. Okay, something that kind of almost looks like a reflection if I were able to do this properly. So it would have been a decay, I think is what I'm trying to get at. It would, but without that -5, it would have been a decay. So what I should have done is switch these two. Yeah. What I should have done is flip these two. So because it should have been a decay, had it not been negative, then it would have had that 1/2. So I should have flipped these two. So I see my mistake. So we learn from our mistakes, then we move on to the next one. Okay, so learning from my mistake from the last time, and notice I'm not cutting out where I made the mistake. I'm leaving that in this video because I want you to see how we learn from our mistakes. Okay, so first of all, my y-intercepts are all fractions. So, first of all, this is a -1, so it's either this one or this one there, and then negative y-intercept. So yeah, so these two have negative y-intercept, so it's automatically going to be one of these. But the question is, which one goes where? So remember, I had said with my mistake that I've realized, when it's a negative y-intercept, that is that minus sign. So the 1/3 here is y-intercept, but the minus sign doesn't just change the y-intercept from positive to negative, it flips the graph. So let me draw what the graph would have looked like had it been positive. So it would have looked like, and again, this is so not perfect, but this is a reflection over the x-axis. So now this would have been a decay, right? So I'm going to use, let's see, out of these negative y-intercepts, I'm going to use this one here because it should have been a decay. So let me change that. Okay, so then that automatically means that this one is here. And then let me just put these, and we're just going to check my answer. So this is growth, so that goes here. And this one is decay, so that goes here. Now let's check my answers. Yay, I learned from my mistakes. All right, so that's just an example of how to figure out what goes where. Now, this is a different problem. This is doing some extra stuff. So now let's look at our notes here. So what does this say? Vertical shift up, vertical shift down. Okay, so that doesn't change the y-intercept, but it changes where the graph is going, the asymptote. So it changes the asymptote. So notice how when these graphs are going this way, it looks like it almost hits 0, but not quite. That's your asymptote. But down here, it's not quite hitting 0. This one's not quite hitting 4. This one's not quite hitting -4. Your asymptote is different. So these +4, -4s are automatically going to go down here because asymptote is not at 0. And if you think it sounds weird to say asymptote, I know. It's not ass like ASS, it's asymptote. So here's the correct spelling. So an asymptote is a line that you don't technically see, but it's a line that when the curve of the graph is it's going towards it, but it's not quite hitting it. So here's an example picture right here. So you never actually see, like, it's not part of the graph, but it just, like, if you zoom in, the line never quite hits a certain value. So that's your asymptotes. Okay, moving back from the asymptote words. So these two graphs right here automatically are going to be one of these because of that +4, -4. Now, they both show growth, okay? So both of these numbers as the base numbers are a number over 1. If I divide 3 by 2, I get 1.5. So both of those hit that way. But one has a y-intercept of +6. One has a y-intercept of -2. So that's how I figure out the difference. These equations don't show that. They don't show a 6 and a -2. So how do we figure out which one fits? Well, the only difference between these two equations is that this one is a +4 and this one is a -4. And because you're shifting the graph up or down, it does change the y-intercept. It doesn't tell you the exact number it's changing it to, but it does change it. So I'm going to take -4 as this went down. The y-intercept should have been 2, because look, the 2 is right here for the y-intercept. The y-intercept should have been 2, but since we're shifting it down 4 units, it's now at -2. So I'm putting this one down here. And now for this one, the y-intercept should have been 2, but we added 4 units, so 2 plus 4 is 6. So I'm going to put this one down here where the y-intercept is now 6. And looking back at our notes, vertical shift is up, vertical shift down. It shows like positive versus negative. So I think we're right. Now, let me go back. So now for this one, these are the only two options left. So let's see which one it is. So the only difference is the -4 and the -2, and that's clear. I see a -2, I see a -4. So I'm automatically going to put those in the places of where the y-intercepts are suggested. So then submit. Yay, we're right. And I was right because I used my notes. So here's this last example. So this one has all the things that we already talked about, but also in the exponent, there's a little something extra. So now let's go back to our notes. So that little something extra now shifts the graph horizontally. Shifts the graph horizontally, left or right. But notice, usually when we think of left, we think of negative, and when we think of right, we think of positive. But look on our notes. So left means there's a plus sign there, and right means there's a minus sign. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. So that means that this has a plus sign here. That means it's going to shift it left. And then, where is it? This one is going to shift right. Okay, I know that now. A few other things to think about. So now looking at these right here. So we discovered with our previous problem that number shifts the graph up or down. And minus does mean down in this case, and plus does mean up in this case. So this is going to go down from our normal graph, and this is going to go up. So these are things we need to think about as we look at the graphs. So now looking at this first one. Okay. You know what? I'm not going to look at this one first. I know it's a growth. I can say that. This is definitely growth. But I don't see the y-intercept, so I'm going to skip that one for a second. Let's look at this one. So this is growth. Something to consider. The y-intercept is at -2 point something, but the graph was shifted down. So it has to be either C or it has to be one of these because the graph shifted down. Now, the question is, did the graph shift right or left? Because that would be the difference between these right here. This one doesn't have anything next to the X, whereas this one does, so that means it shifts right. So that's something I got to think about because that's the only real difference between these. Okay, so I'm going to come back. Actually, they all show growth. Okay. Now this y-intercept is at -1. Okay, none of them show that. And then, okay. Now what I am noticing, are they all the same width? Let's see, let me look back at my notes. Stretch. Okay, but they all have the same stretch factor. Right? They all have a 2. How do we tell the difference? So let's say this is my first time looking at this and I don't see anything obvious. I'm just going to try it out. So because we found in our notes that this number shifts it up or down, wait, no, what did I say? Sorry. Yeah, this number shifts it up or down, and then this number shifts it left or right. So definitely the up and down part. This one does not have an up or down. This one, the asymptote is at 0, where y equals 0. So that's normal for an exponential graph. So the only one that does not have that number at the end to shift it up or down is this one. So I am confident that this answer goes there, 100%. Because all these other ones shift up or down. Now, 2 of them shift down. 1 of them shifts up. Okay, so 2 of these shift down. So automatically, these are going to be these. Only 1 of them has a plus sign right here. So for the up. So I'm confident that that one goes there. So now it's a question of, for these, and the only difference is within the exponent. So this is x minus 3 and just normal x. And then again, that does the horizontal shift. So it's a question of which one goes where. So now looking at both of these, the horizontal shift. So it's like which one is shifted? And when we think about the horizontal shift, remember, positive is left, negative is right. So now going back here, positive left, negative right. So this is negative, so negative means right. So which one of these looks like it was shifted right? And I think it's pretty clear that this one looks like it's more to the right. So then I'm going to go with this one being here. And then there's only one option left. So we're going to go with this one. And this actually makes sense too because, let me go with the pen. Okay, with this equation, the y-intercept should have been at 2. Should have been here. But because the shift is down 3, the vertical shift is down 3. So 1, 2, 3. That makes the y-intercept now at -1, which this graph shows. And there's no horizontal shift because it doesn't have a change in the exponent terms. So I'm confident with this. Just based off my notes, based off of what my notes are telling me, I am confident that these are the answers. Submit. I hope this helps.